Welcome to the Ad Nauseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 115 of the Ad Nauseam podcast. My name is Dr. Jeff Winkle. I'm down here in the bunker, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Dr. David Noe. How you feeling, Dave?
I'm doing pretty well, Jeff.
Yeah?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, I'm feeling philosophical today.
You're dressed kind of philosophical.
Oh, yeah?
You got
Philosophers wear blazers?
You got the blazer, you got the dress pants on. Are you on your way to somewhere?
Yeah, I'm going to sell real estate.
Oh,
I was going to go with the gold blazer, but I went with the blue instead.
Very nice.
No, I was teaching this morning,
Okay.
and I like to, bring a little bit of a formality to the classroom. I didn't go with a tie because, if you wear a sport coat without a tie, it indicates I could be formal or I could be casual, and I just want to leave that open.
Got you. Liminal, as I might say.
Liminal, that's right.
Right.
I'm sartorially liminal.
Yes.
How about you? When you teach, it's flip-flops and like a tie-dye shirt?
It's not quite that informal.
Okay.
So I'm not a tie guy. I own exactly one tie,
You do?
which I never wear.
Oh, why do you own it then if you don't wear it?
I think I had to have it for some kind of formal event, and it was purchased, and it hangs there mocking me in the closet. But no, I'm a pretty casual guy, but I'm not no flip flops or and not even jeans these days.
No jeans.
No jeans.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So maybe on Friday.
So do you say as you age, you're getting a little more formal?
I think
a
so.
little more fuddy-duddy, maybe?
Definitely more fuddy than duddy.
Hey, you kids, get off my lawn, that kind of thing?
A lot of that. A lot of fist shaking and grumbling and muttering. Yeah. But no, I'm doing well.
Yeah.
I'm excited. 2 weeks from today, as we were talking about, I am leaving for Greece.
You're jetting off to Greece with the family.
With my family. I'm doing a photography project there at Lucis. I'm really excited.
That's incredible. I'm envious. I have never been to Greece in the springtime. The violet crowned city, they call it, Athens, in the springtime.
Right.
It should be gorgeous.
Yeah. So they're saying that the flowers in the agora are starting to kind of explode and bloom.
Incredible.
And my wife Beck is she's a gardener, and she's excited. So I've never been through those gardens that are like behind the Zapeion, right? Near Syntagma.
Right. Yeah.
And so I sold the trip to her. Partially said, "Look, listen, they have these national gardens." And so she's really pumped about that.
Did you use the Greek yogurt as a selling point too? Thick like spackle. Do I put this in my mouth or fill the holes in the wall?
Exactly. The food in general I use as a selling point. But you're right that that Greek yogurt you get in the tubs at the local grocery mat.
Nah.
It's okay, but it's not the same.
No, it's not.
You drizzle the honey on it with that big dipper.
That's right.
It's nothing like it.
Yeah, it's really a great aesthetic experience. So I'm excited for you. That's going to be a great time.
Yes.
A great time. You know who else was fond of Greece?
Who was that?
Virgil.
He never went there, did he?
Oh, yes, of course he did.
What did he do there?
In fact, he died right before traveling to Greece, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's
right.
He
was going to leave from Brindisi, right? Brindisium.
That's right. That's right.
Brought his body back and buried him, unintentional alliteration, in Naples.
That's right.
He was on his way to sail off to Greece.
There is that place in Naples that is I guess partially identified as Virgil's tomb.
Really?
We don't really know.
Never been there.
I haven't been there either. I was reading about it. But speaking of Virgil's death, I realized just the other day as I was looking this over is that now myself at age 52, I've outlived Virgil.
Have you lived longer than Virgil?
Virgil died at 51. Wow. Yeah.
And you've accomplished nearly as much.
Yeah, that's the part that's depressing, right? It's like Caesar thinking about Alexander and thinking about that guy
weeping at his tomb.
Yes,
weeping at the tomb of Achilles, right?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, here we're mixing things up.
Where was he when he did that? So
Caesar was in Troy.
What?
Wasn't Caesar in Troy? Are we talking about Alexander?
Didn't Caesar go to Alexander?
Cut. Alexander the Great.
Yes.
Was in Troy.
Yes.
Weeping
at Achilles' tomb.
Yes. Because Alexander had no Homer.
That's
to celebrate his exploits.
That's right.
So how did Julius Caesar get in this at all?
Well, Caesar at Alexander's tomb wept because he thought so much that Alexander had accomplished at such a young age, and he had yet to live up to this. Right.
So I hope someone weeps at my tomb.
Yeah.
Saying that guy owed me so much money. Yeah.
Well, we should probably get down to
we should.
brass tacks.
That's correct. Right? So no shout out. You wanted to give a shout out to Big Shirtless Ron, if I'm not mistaken.
I did, but I don't think the audience
pop culture reference there.
That I don't think anybody's going to get.
No, probably not. So we move on.
Yes.
And what are we talking about today, Dr. Winkle?
We're going to talk about the first half of Aeneid, Book 11. We are closing in on the end of this epic and this long series that we've been doing on the Aeneid.
So no Tarzan and tradition yet? We're just teasing the audience?
Yeah, you're the one teasing about that. So I'm excited about it. I'm kind of waiting for you to pull the trigger on that, but I'm excited about that.
Well, I don't think that now is the time. There will come a time.
Okay.
There'll be a Vine time to talk about Tarzan.
Man,
but it's not now.
Nicely done. Shall I do our opening quote?
Yes, let's hear that, please.
All right. So this comes from an article entitled "Virgil and Heroism: Aeneid, Book 11," from one Thomas Rosenmeyer. Wrote this article quite some time ago in the Classical Journal in 1960.
All right.
And he's talking about particularly a character that is in Book 11. We probably won't get to her today.
Okay.
But
Camilla, am I right?
Which I think is one of the more fascinating parts about this book.
Absolutely.
And I believe it's one of the figures in the Aeneid that most people think is a complete invention of Virgil. There's not a precedent for this.
No mythological historical precedent for Camilla.
And so there's a lot of mystery of kind of why does he put her in there and what's he trying to say? And so this article is talking about the issues of Camilla in Book 11. And Rosenmeyer writes, in Book 11 of the Aeneid, at a time when the crucial war between the Trojans and Rutulians is becoming more and more of a brutal reality, when the Maior Rerum Ordo is beginning to exact its full measure of trumpet calls of slaughter and deceit, Virgil pauses to introduce one of his most glittering personalities, the Volscian warrior maiden Camilla.
That's quite a sentence to get us started, isn't it?
That's one sentence.
It's a periodic sentence. Yep.
It is. Loosely sandwiched between a concentrated dose of a pathetic Dido and the insubstantial expectation of Lavinia, Camilla is the one prominent lady in the epic who never establishes contact of any kind with the hero. It's not just that they never meet. She appears and she disappears, and while she's on stage, she is the protagonist. Her Aristeia, conceived on the model of a Homeric Aristeia of Diomedes and Patroclus, demands both grandeur and isolation. She is an Aeschylean heroine rather than a Sophoclean one. Her role forbids the treatment which made Dido so appealing to us, the drawing of subtle threads to bind one heart to another, or at least to make two persons respond to each other and form a new unit of interest or sensibility, for better or for worse. Camilla is the most uncompromisingly solitary character in the Aeneid, a poem which glories in the portrayal of complex human relationships. For even Aeneas, made lonely by the leadership thrust upon him, shows himself capable of entering into those humanizing, though always ephemeral bonds, which allow us to suffer with him rather than merely admire him. Dido and Pallas, and yes, even Achates, help Aeneas along the road of ceasing to be a cipher and becoming a man. There is no such association to relieve the starkness and the symbolic drabness of Camilla's triumph. Her loneliness is unparalleled, unless it is matched by that of Aaron's, her appointed killer. So,
what do you make of that, Jeff?
Well, I think he's puzzling over the fact there seems to be a paradox here. He said, on the one hand, he finds Camilla kind of an extraordinary character. He calls her one of his most glittering creations or something like that.
That's correct.
But at the same time, she's completely isolated in the epic. There's no grand showdown between Camilla and Aeneas, or any kind of grand showdown with any kind of singular Trojan.
Right.
So he seems to be asking, well, why is she there? Why spend so much time in crafting this? And if we add to the fact that if this is Virgil's a singular creation of his, what's he up to here?
Right.
So my takeaway is there's a lot of questions about Camilla. Right.
There are a lot of insights just in this little excerpt of the article that you read from Rosenmeyer, but it seems in places almost over-argued.
Explain.
It's a stretch. Well, he calls her at the beginning, like you said, one of Virgil's most glittering personalities, the Volscian warrior maid Camilla. He references Dido, right? The concentrated dose of pathetic Dido, the insubstantial expectation of Lavinia. So those are his 2 points of contrast, I guess, because they're both prominent women. Yeah. So Dido takes a lot of our attention in books 1, 2, and 4. And then Lavinia is really a snoozer when she comes on the stage.
Right.
No kind of interest. So I guess Camilla is compared to them, and she's a third thing. She's heroic. She's glittering. So where's the downside or the crux of the mystery that Rosenmeyer is trying to identify?
I mean, I see it in just that he's puzzling over her isolation. So she's the significant way that she differs from a Dido is in that she doesn't really interact with anybody. We don't see her as a romantic interest or any kind of personal interest. As you know, as he notes here, she never even encounters Aeneas himself. And
she differs from Lavinia. Why?
In that she's interesting and Lavinia's boring.
Okay.
I mean,
that's the primary contrast.
I guess so. I would have liked a comparison with like Juturna. So Juturna's sister, I think, is another person that could come. If we're talking about the women of the epic,
right?
She has to be considered as well.
What do you think he means when he says she is an Aeschylean heroine rather than a Sophoclean one?
I'm not exactly sure. I mean, in that a Sophoclean hero is one who suffers into truth, right? Rages against kind of the existential injustice of the universe.
Antigone,
exactly, right? So,
as opposed to Clytemnestra, who's a selfish force of nature,
I suppose. More, I mean, I think Camilla she's an Amazon. She's a warrior. I mean, the things that she does in the epic are more in the realm of the masculine, right?
Yeah.
We can't say that really of Dido or Lavinia. And so the fact that she is this phenomenal warrior on the battlefield makes her, just that alone makes her a character of a different type.
Right.
And so we shouldn't expect of her to be like a Lavinia or a queen waiting back at home. No, she's a spear thrower.
So here's where it's maybe a little bit over-argued.
Okay.
Camilla is the most uncompromisingly solitary character in the Aeneid, a poem which glories in the portrayal of complex human relationships. So to make his point, he then compares Camilla to Aeneas. So Aeneas starts out as a cipher,
right,
a blank slate, a tabula rasa, and turns into a complex person by virtue of his interactions with Achates, his friend, Anchises, his father, Dido, and so on and so forth. But that never happens to Camilla, so therefore she's uncompromisingly solitary.
I guess I see what you're saying. Right. I think it's an unfair comparison.
Right.
I mean, she has her Aristeia, she has her moment on the stage, but that's all we get of her.
Yeah.
Right? But there's no build-up, there's no after story.
There's no backstory, there's no after story.
Right.
Maybe that's what he's complaining about, or maybe that's why he's identifying the uniqueness of Camilla. She comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think that's what I would take away from this, right?
Does that make her a more or less sympathetic character?
Well, let's wait till the next episode,
okay?
Because I think we're not going to get to her in the text today. But I think these are key things we should probably address when we talk about part 2.
Fair enough. All right. So as we get started, then, where is the action taking us now?
Well, if the listener will remember, Book 10 is very, very bloody.
Yeah,
lots of battles, and so now there's piles of bodies on both sides,
and the deal with the belt. Right?
Yes, right.
At
of
the
course.
end, the male pattern baldric.
Very nice. Yes. And so, yes, Turnus has killed Pallas, stripped him of his sword belt, and now it's time to have a little truce and allow both sides to bury their dead.
Exchange of prisoners, exchange of corpses.
Yes, exactly. Right. Would you open us up? Would you read the opening lines in Latin for us?
I would love to. And these are the very first lines of Book 11, right? With a nice Homeric beginning, really.
Yep.
They go like this. Oce aninteriasur gens aurora reliquit, Aeneas quam quet soci istar the tempus humandis, praecipitant cur raitur bateque funera mens est, vota deum primo victor salvebat et o.
I love the o at the
end.
Yeah.
Dawn, right?
Yes.
And I mentioned it's Homeric, right? Because the beginnings and the endings of so many books of the Iliad and Odyssey, the book ends with moist night fell down across the landscape, and stars glittered out. And the next book begins with
rosy-fingered dawn.
Right. Protodactylos Eos came up over the sky.
Right.
As just an aside, not the last time I was in Greece, but third to last time, 2014, I got to go see Kephallonia, way on the west side of Peloponnese. Right. And I could actually see Ithaca, right? The island of Ithaca.
Yes.
And I got to see Rosy-Fingered Dawn that morning. And so
very nice.
That was kind of interesting.
Very Homeric.
Yeah, it was very moving.
Right.
So that's the island. There's the place, where he would have glimpsed the Rosy-Fingered Dawn.
Did you long to get over to Ithaca?
I did. It's not very far.
No?
You could almost swim across.
You could swim it?
Yeah. I couldn't. One could.
One could.
A capable swimmer could.
Yeah.
Many people don't even think that's the location of Homer's Ithaca.
Exactly.
But no matter.
Right. I think I was reading in a commentary that I believe this is the only book of the Aeneid that begins with the rising of the sun and ends with the setting of the sun. You have that Homeric frame. This is the only book that has both of those things.
Interesting.
Yep.
And make something of that, or just variety?
I think I don't know if I want to make too much of this being the only example. I think the important thing is this is very clearly another Homeric nod.
Yeah. So if you're if one is a teacher, you're a teacher out there, and a student asks you a difficult question, here's a nice dodge you can employ. When they say, Mr. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so, Mrs. Why is this in here? You say variationis causa. Variationis causa. It's for the sake of variety.
There you go.
It's a big cop out, but if you put it in Latin, right, it sounds more impressive and
right.
Get you by.
Exactly. It reminds me of I think it's a Whitman quote. It's like, do I contradict myself? I am large and contain multitudes. That's a dodge, right?
Yeah, that's a dodge.
So, you pointing out my contradiction. Well, there's lots of variety in me.
That's right.
That's where it's coming from.
In other words, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you give us the Lombardo translation of those opening lines?
Yes.
And then a little more?
A little more, yes. Dawn left ocean and ascended the sky. Aeneas yearned to devote those hours to the burial of his dead, but as victor, he must fulfill his vows in the day's first light. He erected the trunk of a mighty oak high on a mound and clothed the wood in the gleaming arm stripped from Mezentius, a trophy to you, O great lord of war. So remember, Mezentius, he was the father of Lausus.
Lausus, right? That's right.
That killing on the battlefield that seemed to kind of wake Aeneas up,
right,
a little bit.
A Lausus way to die.
Yeah. Oh. A trophy to you, O great lord of war. He nailed up the crest dewy with blood, and the breastplate pierced a dozen times. On its left side, he bound the shield of bronze and hung from its neck the ivory sword. So that's a pretty. I think it's more of an elaborate ritual of on the battlefield than anything we see in the Iliad.
Yes, for sure.
So, and this is in keeping with so much ritual that we've seen throughout all of the books.
And how's that working on you now? The ritual. You okay with it? You made peace with the notion of the constant proper performance of the rites, and this is how Aeneas establishes his piety.
I have, and I think it actually came from reading this book.
Not from something witty I said?
Well, secondary, tertiary at best. I think that we're seeing in this book a shift of sympathy towards Aeneas.
Oh, really?
And a shift of sympathy away from Turnus.
Okay.
Where I think we were talking last time in book 10, I think it's quite the opposite.
Yes.
So, we see Aeneas kind of in his full rage and doing all kinds of seemingly and arguably unheroic things on the battlefield. Now, I think after that killing of Lausus, he's kind of snapped out of it. And so to start book 11 with this very elaborate ritual, I was also reading that in some ways you could read this passage that not only is he making a trophy of his killing of Mezentius, but he's honoring Mezentius himself by what he's doing here. And that's a different kind of Aeneas that we saw in book 10. Mm-hmm. And then what happens with Turnus later on, his countrymen seem to be turning against him. And he lashes back, and he's kind of all in for the rage and the slaughter. So I wonder if this is Virgil kind of changing the tone, and setting us up for the end of the epic. And so I think this elaborate ritual that we're seeing here is part of Virgil saying, okay, this Aeneas, he's back on track.
Okay,
he's pious. He's pious.
He's following all of the rituals. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then there's a 12-day truce declared?
Yes.
For both sides to bury their dead. Right.
And the first part of Book 11 focuses a lot on the funeral procession of Pallas. Mm-hmm. And so this is a big deal. And this also, as we'll see, becomes important for interpreting the end of the epic. Okay. So, but, elaborate, funeral procession and pyre. His body's being carried back from the battlefield all the way back to Arcadia. Aeneas chooses 1,000 men to accompany the body. There's horses. There's trophies from what was won on the battlefield. Pallas' own horse.
We're given the name of the horse.
Yes, Aethon.
That's right.
Is riderless.
Yes. Right. Aethon is a gleaming or flashing, I think.
Is that what that means? I was blanking on that adjective.
Yes, I think so.
Yep. But Aeneas himself doesn't go. He stays behind, and he's is the reader, the listener would recall, Aeneas missed a lot of the battle already, hanging back at Arcadia, and so he doesn't go back to see Evander. He stands here to govern the rest of the rituals.
So the men move off then, some 1,000 men accompanying the body of Pallas back to Arcadia.
Yeah, and we'll get the scene of Evander kind of realizing what's happening and receiving the body of his son in just a bit.
But Aeneas stays back.
Yeah.
He doesn't go on the funeral procession, the journey He has other things to do.
He does. And one of the more important things is that these envoys from the Latins come to see him, and they're the ones who actually request the truce.
Yes. So this is the region of Latium. The king is Latinus, just to keep everybody straight on the details. His wife is Amata, or Lovey, right? His daughter Lavinia, who is betrothed now to Aeneas, instead of Turnus.
Right.
So those are the ones that come, not Rutulians, but Latins.
Latins, right. You want to read a bit of Latin here?
Yeah, so they request a truce, right? And we get here Aeneas' response in just a minute. So this is line 108, lines 108 and following. Quaenam vos tanto fortunem digna Latini, implicavit bello qui nos fugiatis amicos, pacem mex anamiset martis sorta peremptis, ordratis equidet vivis concedere velem, neque nisi fata locum sedem quid descent, nec bellum cum gentegero rex nostra reliquit. Hospiti et turni potius se credidit armis.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Very deft through those many elisions.
Oh, there were many there. Yeah. It's like walking through a land, what's that called? A minefield.
Yes, exactly.
Through a minefield.
Right. So again, I'll give Lombardo's translation in a bit more.
All right.
This is Aeneas speaking. What undeserved ill fortune, Latins, has entangled you in a war so terrible that you turn away from us, your friends? You request peace for the war dead. Gladly I would grant it for the living as well. I would never have come had not fate assigned me a home here. Nor am I at war with your people, but with your king, who broke our alliance and trusted instead to Turnus' arms. It would have been more just for Turnus himself to face this death. If he wanted to end the war by force and drive out the Trojans, he should have fought with me with these weapons. Only one of us would have lived, whether by heaven's grace or his own strong hand. Go now and place your countrymen on the pyre.
So he's proposing a kind of duomachia, right? A two-man conflict like we see in Iliad 3.
Right.
Between Paris and Menelaus.
Right. Which ends with, I think it's Pandarus who shoots an arrow and kind of throws the whole thing into chaos.
Yes, that's right. And then, of course, Aphrodite swoops down, takes Paris off the battlefield, and drops him in Helen's bedroom.
Yes.
Right? You're too good looking, to face the conflict on the field.
Too pretty for war.
That's correct.
One of my favorite visuals from the Iliad is Menelaus. Remember, he's dragging Paris away.
That's right.
It's the chin strap of his helmet.
It's incredible.
That is just dragging him.
And the helmet rolls in the dust. Yeah, and then he's gone. And the great part about that is when Hector shows up right at the door of Helen's bedroom. Where's my cowardly brother?
Yes.
Right. He's enraged. But then he soon changes his mind because Paris is the lovable scamp. Nobody can be angry at him.
Exactly. I thought it was interesting in these lines too is I can look how gentle and conciliatory that Aeneas is. He says, what undeserved ill fortune, Latins, has entangled you in a war so terrible that you turn away from us, your friends.
Right. You request peace for the war dead. I would grant it. I would gladly grant it for the living as well. All I want is peace.
Right.
He says.
Now, I mean, that is a radically different Aeneas that we saw in the previous book.
Well, that's because the killing is over, at least temporarily.
Yeah. But it's that shift where, again, he's shifting from being an Achilles to being kind of a Hector once again. And so I like I said, I wonder if this is part of his purpose is to present an Aeneas who is more pious, more compassionate, to set up the end of the epic.
Yes, well, because he's a builder of civilization. That's how he has been presented.
Yeah.
Maybe what we could say is that the Iliadic elements of the last 6 books, books 7 through 12, all the warfare and so forth, perhaps Virgil is not as at ease in telling that part of the story as he is with the Odyssean portion.
Yeah, I'd buy that. Yeah, no, I think that's definitely true. It's just I thought there's a huge seesaw between these two books.
Yes.
Well, we'll have to see where this goes. How does this ultimately set up the end or not set up the end?
Right. Well, the adventure story, the romance story of the first 6 books is just an easier story to tell in terms of characterization than the conflict on the battlefield.
Good point.
That takes a lot more work.
Yeah, exactly. And then this guy, I thought that this interesting character, this Dronces,
yes,
who hates Turnus, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I think it's more that he blames Turnus for all of this, and maybe not without good reason, right? And so he says, Turnus, this is your war, this is your fault, and like Aeneas said, you should settle it. Go fight this guy, and so the rest of us don't have to suffer,
right?
And so I wonder too if this is true that Virgil wants to kind of turn the audience's opinion against Turnus. Are we supposed to kind of start to see him through eyes of characters like Dronces? Or is he more like a Thersites type figure, just kind of grumpy, ridiculous? I'm not exactly sure.
So maybe you're saying we see Turnus through the eyes of one of his countrymen, Dronces. So we start to understand that maybe Turnus is driven by his own sense of pride. He's not really the champion of his people against a foreign invader.
Yeah.
It's not a group effort. It's really just his own grudge.
Yes, I think so. And I think the fact that, so even in the passage we just read where Aeneas says, fate brought me here. Right. He didn't even want to do this, but fate brought me here. And that pops up a few times. And I wonder if the Latins or even the Rutulians are starting to recognize, you know what? What's the point in fighting somebody who's so clearly called by fate? Mm-hmm. And so Turnus's his demand that he keeps going and fighting for his own personal honor, the Latins are saying, what's the point? Right. This is now just all about you, and people are dying.
Isn't it inevitable? I think that's an excellent point. Isn't it inevitable that Virgil has to separate Turnus from his supporters eventually, because all of those persons on the peninsula will eventually be absorbed into the Roman project.
Right.
So he's got to start to separate Turnus out as the real barrier to peace.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Right. And so, and then we get this. I'm getting ahead of things, but this wonderful report of what Diomedes said. Right. So Diomedes, one of the
Greek villain,
the Greek villain, who fought at Troy, who fought against Aeneas, and fought against Venus. What he has to say, and he too kind of adds his voice to. This is a terrible idea. Yeah.
To resist Aeneas.
To resist Aeneas, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And speaking of resisting Aeneas,
yes,
I believe it's time for the ads.
All right. This episode of the Ad Nauseam podcast is brought to you by Ratio Coffee. Jeff, let's say it's an early wintry morning.
Yes.
Moving into late spring. You wake up in the morning and you were up late the night before, finishing grading, maybe watching some of the Netflixes or perhaps reading some great classical literature. Mm-hmm. How are you going to start your day?
Well, I'm going to go right to my Ratio 8 machine.
Yes.
And in which I will have my hand-blown glass carafe waiting. Okay. With a silver cone also inside.
Nice.
I'll grind up some beans, put them in there, and all I do is hit the button, and in probably about 6-7 minutes.
It's incredible.
I've got the perfect cup of coffee ready to go.
Just enough time to take a shower.
Yes, exactly.
Just enough time to scrape the snow off the vehicle.
That's right.
Right? Or maybe you keep your vehicle in a garage.
I do not, actually.
Oh, I don't either.
Yeah.
And when you come back, it's ready.
It's ready.
It takes no oversight, no attention, and it makes a perfect cup of coffee.
Yeah. You know what? I kind of like to hang out in the kitchen while it's brewing. Yeah. Do you run off? Are you that efficient that you got? Oh, I can accomplish this task.
I often have too much to do, frankly.
Gotcha.
So I wouldn't mind hanging around, and sometimes I do. I like the sound it makes, and it's very aromatic. But usually, I'm pulled in some other direction.
Gotcha. Are you one of those guys that when you wake up, you are boom ready to go?
I used to be one of those guys. Now I'm one of another kind of guy, I guess. It's called age, Winkle.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I got you. You see, when I press that button, I haven't had my coffee yet, and so where am I going to go?
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. So you've got the stainless steel version, am I right?
And what's yours again?
I want to hear about your accents, though.
Yes, I got the stainless steel with the wood accents.
Okay, yes. The light wood kind of?
The light wood, yes.
Light wood, yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful machine.
Right.
Yep.
And I have the oyster color, oyster shell, with the walnut accent.
And you have the thermal carafe, right?
I have the thermal carafe. And the genius part of this is, as we've said many times before, not much recently, but the Ratio 8 has no Kindle brick underneath.
Exactly right.
No hot plate, no scorch pad.
Nothing.
The coffee is heated, in the metallic veins, and then it's deposited into this thermal carafe. You used to like to say you could transport plutonium in this thing.
You could.
It is so secure.
It's a work of art. I have one that's on the way.
Yes,
I'm very
that's
excited
right.
to get it. And it's extraordinary how many hours that keeps that coffee piping hot. It's amazing.
It's really, really good.
Yep.
Has this nice rubber insert that goes on the top to keep everything. You've got one of those for your hand-blown borosilicate glass carafe.
Yes, and the way it pours is just a work of art.
Now, are you a cream guy? You cream up the coffee?
No, straight black.
Straight black.
How about you?
I sometimes like to add some half and half.
Yeah.
Or some hole in hole, some heavy whipping cream.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Chew your coffee that way.
Definitely.
So we've been going on and on about this.
Yep. So if the listener wanted to get one of these, the Ratio 8, like the ones we have, or its younger brother, the Ratio 6, what should they do?
They should go to ratiocoffee.com, RATIO coffee.com, browse the extensive selection of first-rate world-class machines When they have chosen one, they should add in this coupon code. AN, that's ad nauseum, CO coffee, ANCO9Y. And the Y stands for yummy.
Is that that's what it is
yes,
this week? Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
ANCO9Y for the month of March. And they will get what, Jeff?
I believe it's 15% off their entire order.
15%. Check it out.
This episode of Ad Nauseam is also brought to you by Hackett Publishing. I realized today that Hackett Publishing has been around for basically as long as I've been alive. They're in their 52nd year. So am I.
You're in your 52nd year.
That's right. Exactly.
And what is your shelf life, so to speak?
I'm not sure, but I know that Hackett has now outlived Virgil as well.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But they've been for all of these years with their offices in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Cambridge, Massachusetts. They've been bringing wonderful, digestible, readable, affordable translations of the classics and from many other areas of academia and history and philosophy from around the world. They've been bringing them to the public, and I can't say enough about them. I love the texts. I use them in my classroom. I use them at home. I've got, I think in my trunk, I got both of those translations of Ovid's Metamorphoses that we used. That was the Lombardo translation.
Yeah.
Who's the other guy?
Just to, Ambrose.
Ambrose, yes.
Just to use as a spare tire or what? Is that how durable the translation is?
Well, I have these books, the Cluttering the House.
Okay.
And so my wife, for every once in a while, will say, do we need that here?
Right.
Can't you bring that to the office?
Put it in the trunk.
Put it in the trunk.
Perpetually.
Yeah. Bring it there.
You used to keep one in the glove box.
Yes.
You told me.
Now that's
right?
stuffed with other other kind of ephemera. But,
and I think that you keep one behind glass, right? And it says in case of emergency, break the glass and pull out the translation of the Metamorphoses.
Exactly. It's always good to have on hand. You never know when you're going to use it.
You never know, right?
Dave, what do you like about Hackett?
I'm at the website right now, HACKETT publishing.com, and I am marveling at the breadth of their selection. Anselm, The Complete Treatises by Thomas Williams. That guy was on my dissertation committee.
Was he really?
Yeah. The Scientific Background to Modern Philosophy, selected readings by one Michael Matthews. The Buddha's Teaching as Philosophy, Mark Sideritis, and Cinema for French Conversation. It looks like Rice is the editor, the author, and Christine Rice of that particular edition.
So a lot more than just your Greek and Roman stuff.
Oh, it's a lot of stuff, a great breadth of material.
Yes.
And so I like that about Hackett.
Yeah.
And I'm often recommending these, not just on the podcast, but to friends and in emails and conversations. Check this one out. This is very good.
Yes.
The complete works of Aristotle coming out, essential Greek historians. They've got so much.
Yes, and this translation of the Aeneid that we've been using from Stanley Lombardo is phenomenal.
It is really good.
Right, and it's from Hackett. So, listener, go do yourself a favor. Go to hackettpublishing.com. Find the text that you want. Drop them in the little grocery satchel. And what's our coupon code there?
The coupon code is, first of all, ad nauseum, AN, and then the current calendar year, which, if I'm not mistaken, is 2023.
I believe you're right about that.
So what you need is AN 2023.
And that will get you 20% off your entire order and
free shipping.
Check it out.
All right, Jeff. Now, as we get back into it, we are going to be treated to more funeral rites. Am I wrong?
A lot more. Right?
Okay.
So I think it's elaborate.
Okay.
So the kind of stuff, like the kind of stuff that would kind of, grind on me earlier.
Yes.
Now I'm kind of seeing the purpose and the point of it. Okay.
So you still don't find it necessarily aesthetically pleasing?
I don't.
In the same way that you don't like the catalog of ships?
Exactly.
But you do like the catalog of furniture from IKEA, for example?
Oh, I love that.
Okay.
Allen wrenches.
Yes. So why have you changed your mind then?
Because I'm starting to see the literary purpose of it. I think that at least in this book, it is Virgil kind of changing our opinion of Aeneas. And the more of these rites, the more elaborate and detailed they are. We say, okay, he's not the rager on the battlefield anymore. He's thinking about the religious correctness of all of that. And so he's
a community builder.
Yeah, he is. And I'm starting to see the purpose of that, where before it was like, okay, we get it. He's pious already.
Right.
And but here it seems to have, as we're kind of, we're veering towards the end.
Right.
I think I'm starting to see what he's up to. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's all. That's all
right.
I'm saying. Yeah.
So rumor spreads. Yes?
Yes.
About the death of Pallas.
Right. And it reaches the Arcadians before the body does. And so the women are wailing, and Evander is completely heartbroken. He gets a really long speech where he mourns for his son. It's quite a beautiful speech.
It's like a motorcade.
Yeah.
It's on its way.
Yeah.
Have you noticed the diminution in motorcades? Is it just where we live, West Michigan, this part of the country? It seems like when I was much younger, these were much more frequent sights. You'd be driving down the road, and all of a sudden you would see a long string of vehicles led by a hearse
with the funeral flags,
and you would, deferentially get out of the way.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't do that in Los Angeles or Detroit or Boston or other places where it's busy, but
you treat it like an ambulance is coming.
Yes,
right?
here in the Midwest, you pull over to the side of the road, and sometimes there is like a train going by.
Yeah.
It'd be 30, 40 vehicles. I can't remember the last time I saw one of those.
That's a good point. I can't either.
I think maybe the practice has fallen out of use.
Possibly. Yeah, you're right. I haven't seen that in ages. Yeah. I don't know what's behind that.
Huh. Is that the sort of thing you hope to have?
A motorcade?
Yeah.
I don't need a motorcade.
You don't?
No. Just a small gathering of family and friends, right? No motorcade.
And assorted billionaires and celebrities?
Maybe people on unicycles?
I was going to say, I kind of would like one.
Would you?
Having been a longtime opponent of parades, right?
That's right. You are anti-parade.
I am
right?
very anti-parade, pomp and circumstance.
Right.
There'd be a great fitting irony if there's a parade at my funeral, right?
Exactly.
Got him at last.
Right, exactly.
I got to suffer through this now.
Here's 4 brass bands.
That's right. I think that would be pretty good.
That would be.
Yeah.
That would be. The riderless horse detail reminds me of seeing film from the Kennedy's parade. They had the riderless horse kind of to honor the slain president.
Yes.
And so
there's something very evocative about that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So to use an analogy from a president, right? To say a classics professor and scholar like yourself or like me, what would the equivalent be?
Of a riderless horse?
Yeah, would it be like a lexicon without its dust jacket?
Yeah,
could that be it?
Exactly.
Or
like
maybe
that.
a pen without its cap, or something that shows it's out of place.
Yeah.
There's a vacancy. There's a void.
Yes.
It's not liminal. It's whatever the opposite of that
exactly.
is.
Or I'm thinking maybe a pickup truck that's hauling like an empty lectern.
Yeah, that would be good. Or maybe like I don't know, a USB port without a thumb drive.
There you go.
Something that's real unique to being a professor.
I think you've thought a lot about your funeral, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's just kind of a pastime of mine.
Just really okay. So Evander has this. He's obviously deeply saddened, and he laments. The gods didn't listen to his prayers. He remember Pallas. He warned him. You're young. Don't be reckless. And remember that Pallas was the one who,
like the Daedalus and Icarus speech.
Exactly right. And Pallas, indeed, he was in rallying his troops who didn't want to go into the battle. He runs right into the thick of it. He does exactly the opposite of what his father recommended. Yeah, that Daedalus and Icarus. I think there's a layer there. He's happy that his wife wasn't alive to see this. But this almost about face in the middle of his speech where he says, "Even so, I don't blame Aeneas. I don't blame the Trojans. I don't regret joining up with these guys."
Does that surprise you?
Well, a little bit. I think it speaks to Evander's level of honor, and that even in that he lost his son, he's dedicated to this cause, to the program that he's signed on to. And he doesn't just throw that all away. I mean, he says, not only is he still on the Trojan side, he deeply still respects Aeneas,
right?
Even though he could easily, in some ways, blame him for the death of his own son.
Now, as a real maven of popular culture, Johnny Pop, like you are, perhaps you can test this hypothesis of mine. I think that it has become almost a trope now that in some movie or some book, the person who is on board with the cause, when they have a personal tragedy, that's when the switch is flipped. And now they become opposed to the cause in a very strident fashion. That's kind of a trope, isn't it? It happens again and again.
I recently in my film class showing an example of actually examples of that, but also the opposite of that. As we've talked on the air, you've seen Saving Private Ryan.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, I like that movie a lot.
So you have this small platoon led by Tom Hanks. Captain Miller, and their job is to find this Private Ryan, because all of his 3 other brothers have been killed, and so the War Department wants him to come back home.
Right, so that the family doesn't lose another one.
Exactly.
Isn't Affleck in that movie?
He is not. Matt Damon plays.
Damon is
Private
He's
Ryan.
Private Ryan.
He's Private Ryan.
But Affleck's not in that movie.
He's not. Thank goodness.
Okay, good.
Yes, right. So they have to go kind of behind enemy battle lines to find this guy.
Right.
And they lose some of their comrades along the way. And the guys in the platoon said, what are we doing?
Right. We're all going to die to save one man.
Exactly. We've lost two. And indeed, most of them do die. And they're all against us. And there's almost kind of a mutiny. But Tom Hanks, he wrestles with this, but he says, this is the mission. This is what we're doing. We're bringing Private Ryan home. And there's points in the film where it's very clear that he doesn't know why they're doing that, but he sticks to the mission to the very end. And I mean, it's a very moving scene at the end where the Tom Hanks character, he's mortally wounded.
Right.
And Matt Damon, Private Ryan, comes up to him, and his dying words to Private Ryan are, earn this, earn it, live a life that's worthy of all these men that have died.
Oh, yes.
For you.
I think I remember now that the movie opens with the Private Ryan character, Damon, at Arlington Cemetery.
An older version of himself,
yes.
right? And he drops before the grave of Miller, the Tom Hanks character.
Yes, right. Okay. So the genius of that movie or the story is that it examines both types.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
The type of the person who's turned away from duty by personal tragedy, and the person who is rededicated by from personal tragedy to that given duty.
Exactly right. And I think I see almost all of that in the Aeneid, right?
Well, Evander is the type of the person who hews to duty despite personal tragedy.
He's the Hanks character.
Okay.
Yep. But I think like a character like Droncase, he's like, what are we doing?
Right.
You go. You fight for this, Turnus. Like if you die, it's all on you.
Yeah.
Right. Why are we doing this?
Right. But he's on the losing side.
True.
Do you have a sense that one of those two types has more artistic depth or maybe even moral value, to go into a deeper direction? Because there's something unusual about Evander in this.
Yes, exactly. I think that I think you're right that it's a trope in more contemporary storytelling to what's more important? It's the feelings of the individual.
Yes.
Than the bigger picture.
Correct. So we would find it a little bit implausible for someone to suffer as much as Evander has and then say, but you know what? I'm still devoted to the cause.
Right.
To our sensibility, that just seems phony in some ways.
Yes, exactly right.
It's switched.
Yeah. And I think it's true. And I think, I've been kind of affected by that trope in pop culture.
Right.
I remember in showing this film to my class, at the end there's a voiceover where the War Department is writing a letter to the Ryan family.
Okay, I don't remember that.
And it's filled with all these platitudes of the great sacrifice that you've made for the country and for the freedom. And on the one level, I get it and I recognize the honor. But on the other hand, it's hard. It sounds so cliche. Jingoistic, yeah.
Well, the movie came out in, what was it, late 90s?
98.
98. Mm-hmm. So that had more purchase maybe then?
I think so.
Than today?
Right. And so, I think it did because and I also noticed kind of the Spielberg, here come the sweeping violins to kind of, to kind of push you over the edge.
To tell us emotionally how we're supposed to respond.
Exactly right. And I thought, okay, this is an excellent movie, but it's also very manipulative at the same time. And I don't remember feeling like that when I saw it in the theaters 25 years ago.
No,
right?
well, you were much younger.
I was.
Right? Maybe not as astute.
Or as cynical.
Yeah, well, could be.
Yeah. But no, but I think that those themes,
right,
that I think with the themes that film plays with deals with in a really interesting and deep fashion, I see it all over the Aeneid.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe with respect to Evander, it's just much harder to portray a character who is not deflected from duty by personal tragedy.
Yeah.
And to make it plausible.
Yes.
Maybe that's why it's done less frequently.
I think that's true. I think that's really true. Right. And so at the end of that, Evander reveals that he says, what I want, Aeneas, I respect you, I honor you, but what I want Turnus dead.
Yeah.
He wants his revenge, and he wants it to come from Aeneas's hand.
Right.
So in terms of a plot point, this is steering the epic towards the way it literally ends.
Yes, we're accelerating to the end. Mm-hmm. So then we get this cinematic scene, right?
Yes.
Multiple funeral pyres burning on the shore.
Yeah.
It's very, very vivid.
Very evocative. It's one of these things that I think Virgil does so much better than Homer.
Really?
I think so.
Even better than Homer.
I think so. We've called attention to so many scenes like this where, like, it's if the camera pans back. And
it's imprinted on your mind.
It is. So you have these pyres burning on the shore, and then again more of these intricacies of ritual, riding on horseback around the pyre 3 times. These trophies of war thrown into the fire with the burning bodies. There's the sacrifice of cattle and pigs. The men keeping an all-day vigil. And it kind of reminded me of how the Iliad ends with the funeral of Hector.
But no athletics here, am I right?
No games, no. We had those for Anchises.
Yes, in Book 5. And we have funeral games in the Iliad, right?
It's true, yeah.
Book 23, I think it
for
is.
For Patroclus.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, they're noticeably,
no games.
They're noticeably absent here, yeah.
And I guess that's because it's mid-war? I don't know.
I guess so.
Doesn't really follow with the Iliad.
Right. And so that's on the Trojan side of things. The Latins follow suit.
They're going to bury their own dead, mourn their own dead.
Exactly right. And one thing that struck me, I don't know if this is worth making a serious point of, but Virgil tells us that they also burn their dead, but they kind of pile them in a mass grave.
Yeah.
And whereas it's the rites on the Trojan side are much more individual, much more elaborate.
Right.
And I wonder if Virgil's suggesting, Aeneas has something to teach these people.
So part of the civilizing process he's going to bring is how to bury one's dead properly.
How to bury the dead and how to do this, how to do these kinds of rituals.
Yeah, a person was mocking me recently for thinking about my own funeral quite a bit.
Who was that?
I don't know.
Right, yeah.
But that's kind of the motivation, right? You know, you want to have a death that's beautiful, right? Hothanatos kalos.
Yeah.
Now, I think that for the Greeks means you die in a beautiful fashion. It's less about the burial than the way in which your life ends.
Right.
But the burial deserves a little bit of attention.
Absolutely, right. I think that's also something I think that our contemporary modern secular society has lost is kind of the importance of ritual.
Correct.
Right.
And you got to carry that through all the way to the end.
All the way to the end, yeah.
It's like a scaffolding that helps your emotions go along.
Yeah.
You don't, in difficult times, you don't want to have no scaffolding for your emotions.
Yes.
You want to have something there to provide structure when there doesn't seem to be much.
Very well said. Very well said.
So the Latins, they can learn something from Aeneas and the Trojans about how to bury their dead.
Right, and I think it's another one of these places in the book where, again, Virgil's saying, the Trojans are the ones who are fated. They're the ones who really have something to offer. They're not just the bloody invaders who are conquering for the sake of conquering.
Right. And now we pause for a word from Diomedes.
Right. I thought this was interesting that we don't get the scene with Diomedes isn't on stage, so to speak. It's a messenger kind of bring it back. And I was curious. I mean, why do you think Virgil did that? I mean, why not have kind of a star turn, this cameo? Diomedes.
I was going to say, isn't this like the cameo, right?
Yeah, but it's told through a messenger speech.
Yeah, I guess because he's not supposed to eclipse. He's not supposed to eclipse Aeneas. For some of these things, maybe there's not really an answer at all. It's just kind of the choice that Virgil made, and he was thinking of later classicists. These people need something to write their dissertations about. I got to leave a lot of loose ends, a lot of things untied, or they're not going to have a job.
Right, exactly. Reminds me of I was watching a documentary on Bob Dylan a while back, and there's footage of him.
He's still alive, right?
He is. He's 80 now, and so he's an old man. But in this, there was film clips of him as a very young man where he was like his star had just kind of exploded.
Right.
And he's in a hotel and he's typing out lyrics on a typewriter, and I think it's Joan Baez who's in there and pulls a sheet and kind of reads it out loud. And Dylan lyrics can be a little bit thick and kind of, and she asks him, she says, Bobby, says, what does this mean? And he says something like, I have no idea, but people are going to write books about it.
True story?
True story, yeah. Or something along those lines. It's like Dylan even knew that the more obscure that he could be, people are going to, this must mean something deep.
Yeah, well, you first have to establish a reputation for depth, and then you can say whatever you want.
Exactly. And I think that he was kind of, almost kind of satirizing himself at that point. Right?
But Virgil's not really there in the same way.
No.
Virgil has a, narrative, for one thing.
Exactly right.
So he comes back. A messenger comes back with a message for Latinus, right, the king of the Latins, and it is what?
Well, they had appealed to Diomedes and say, "Hey, come help us. Come be on our side." And Diomedes says, not going to do this." And so, should we refresh the? So Diomedes, he was a Greek.
That's right.
He fought. We see him in the Iliad. He has his moment of Aristeia.
Yes, book 6. His epithet is Boenagathon. Good at the war cry.
That's right, yeah.
That's a great epithet.
It is.
He's the guy who's on the battlefield. He can really belt it out.
Exactly.
Right? No matter where he is, you can hear him, at full voice, on pitch, Boeing Agathon.
Yeah, think about Diomedes doing karaoke.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking, right? He's like the Robert Plant of the battlefield.
Exactly. It's a howl.
Yeah. Or Axl Rose.
Yes.
Someone who has a voice like a reed.
Exactly.
Right? It's not really a human voice. It's like a reed.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
That's Diomedes, good at the war cry.
Right.
And possibly, I think he's third in order in terms of prowess. It goes Achilles, Ajax, Telamon, and Diomedes is third.
That's right. So he's no slouch.
No slouch.
Right. And so he kind of gives a mini recap of what happened to him and what happened at the Trojan War what happened afterwards.
Via messenger.
And he says, yeah, we won the war, but it was a Pyrrhic victory.
Right.
And so he says, look what happened to everybody.
Ooh, nice anachronism. Diomedes calls it a Pyrrhic victory. Pyrrhus isn't going to be born for 1,000 years.
That's right. Exactly.
That's great.
Right. He says, look, Agamemnon's dead, murdered when we got home. Odysseus is off wandering. He's meeting beasts like the Cyclops. Menelaus and Helen got blown off course. They're lost.
Took a wrong turn at Albuquerque.
Right. Exactly. He says, I lost my wife, which is... He connects this to, he wounded Aphrodite, Venus, on the battlefield.
Right.
And so she gets her revenge.
Punishment.
Right. And then his men turned into birds and scattered. I mean, that's a horrible thing to happen. Yeah. Right. So he says, I am not touching this again. And so I think, of course, Aeneas' connection to Venus. He's Venus' son.
Right.
So I'm not messing with this goddess again. I'm not messing with her son. I saw what he could do on the battlefield. You don't know who you're dealing with.
Right.
My advice, he says, make peace, join him.
Yeah. If they'd had one more guy like this.
Yeah.
Right. One more guy like this, the Trojans would have won.
Yeah. He says with Hector and Aeneas, they almost warded us off. If one more guy, it would have been a different story.
I think he's puffing Aeneas up a little bit.
A little bit.
There are some mentions in the Iliad. We talked about this at the very beginning of this long odyssey through the Aeneid about how Homer tells us some great things about Aeneas' prowess, but he's still a fairly minor character.
Yes,
in the Iliad.
Exactly right. So yeah, there's more than a little puffing up here.
Right.
So when the assembly hears this, there's lots of harumphing going on.
Right.
Well, what should we do about this?
Right.
And there's a really nice simile here.
Epic simile.
How about a little bit more Latin?
I'd love that.
Yes.
Here we go. This is line 296 and following. Vix ea legati variusque per ora cucurdret, aus onidum turbate fremor cal saxe morantur, cum rapidos amnes fit clauso grugita murmur, wiki nae quefermunt ripae crepitantibus undis.
Nice.
A little bit of internal rhyme there. Did you hear that?
Where was it?
Wiki nae quefermunt ripae.
Nice.
I like that internal rhyme.
Excellent.
That Virgil has.
And Lombardo. The envoys had just finished when troubled murmurs rippled through the Ausonian assembly. Like the sound that comes from a pent-up stream that has been blocked by boulders. The current churns, and the close banks echo the rushing water.
Nice.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
That brings that harumphing alive.
Yeah, so that simile then is a pent-up stream blocked by boulders, right? And then what happens?
And then, so Latinus...
The water, I'm saying...
sorry.
In the simile, the water breaks through.
Right.
And it makes that churning, squishing sound.
Right. I think we can all hear that in our heads.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Latinus comes to the conclusion, he agrees with Diomedes. This is a bad idea.
Right.
And even says things like, we are fighting with gods. I mean, is some puffing up there.
Well, Aeneas is the son of Venus.
I guess so.
He's a demigod.
I guess so. One of the things that I thought was kind of puzzling is that he folds pretty quickly. And if we look at kind of the battle in Book 10, it strikes me, it's pretty much a stalemate. I mean, nobody's really kind of seriously advancing on the other, right?
No.
So there's no really evidence like this Trojan victory is inevitable.
No.
But maybe it's this idea, this notion that, fate's on his side, and what's the point of fighting against its fate? Is that what's going on? Is that why Latinus just kind of folds up? Or is Virgil feeling like he's got to wrap this story up? He's almost to book 12. I don't know.
Maybe his editor gave him a word count. Right, he's dangerously going over.
Right.
The illustrator had only been hired for the first 11 books. Right.
Right.
Who's going to draw the scenes for book 12?
Yes.
And then Drances.
He comes again.
Drances appears on the scene.
Guns blazing.
Right.
And he's with Latinus, and he says, in case you didn't read it a few lines ago, Turnus is the problem.
Right.
And he mocks him for Turnus kind of, remember he was lured onto the ship.
That's right.
And taken up the coast.
Yep.
So Dronces interprets that, you're running away.
You're kind of a loser.
This is your problem.
Right.
And you're running away in the middle of it.
Turn and face it.
Right. So why should, and I thought this was kind of an interesting, again, kind of recap of the Trojan War. Like, why should all these people die? Because of your relationship problems.
Right.
You've lost your bride. So Turnus is kind of playing the Menelaus role here,
yes.
right?
Sulky, kind of sulky.
Yes.
Why doesn't everyone join my cause for my personal gripe?
Exactly. And so, and again, he reiterates this theme: be a man, settle this yourself, go meet Aeneas in combat, because you're really the only two that have a beef here.
Right. So where does this portion of the book end? About halfway through, what is Turnus's response?
Oh, and I think this is where we see Turnus really shedding any kind of Hector-ness that he had.
Okay, so no more nobility.
No, which we saw in book 10.
Right.
And so here he just lashes back, and he mocks Dronces and says, when you have enough trophies on the battlefield, if you have as many, then you can speak. See, Turnus frames it.
So he's pulling rank.
He's pulling rank, and he's also saying, what makes me a worthy warrior? What makes me better than you, Dronces? Look how many people I've killed.
Yeah, it's an ad hominem.
Yes.
Basically what it is.
Yep.
My argument is good because you're not as good as I am.
Yes, exactly right.
End of discussion.
Right, and then he even uses language like, he says, I want to see, the Tiber River choked with Trojan blood and bodies, which is
just like the Scamander.
The Scamander, right, which is choked with bodies that at the height of Achilles' mad rage in the Iliad.
Back in Troy. So this shows Turnus as not a team player, not fighting for the fortunes of his country. He can't make an appeal to patriotism. This is just personal pique.
Personal pique. He sees that it's all about kind of defending this honor that he's lost, right? So he wants the Trojans' bodies in the Tiber. He wants all the Arcadians dead. But then he even says too, like, why are we giving up so easily, right? No,
so now he makes a heroic turn.
Well, I think he's still, again, I think he's in his full rage. But I think he kind of has a point here. He says, where are the men of valor? I think he's recognized what we were just saying about Book 10. There's no real evidence on the ground that the Trojans are winning this battle.
No, it's a stalemate.
So why are we folding right now? And so and again, he tries to shame the men back into this. But I wonder. I think there are aspects of in the Greek tradition that even in the face of an inevitable fate, there is honor in at least fighting back.
Yeah, you got to see it through. We've talked about this many times, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about this specifically with respect to Juno in this play, in this epic. Excuse me. She knows it's lost, but she's going to make it as difficult as possible for Venus and her son to succeed.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah. So I think he makes some valid points here.
Right.
But the rug has been pulled out from underneath.
Yeah, but Camilla's on her way.
She is.
And she could rally the troops. There's still some hope.
Right.
Maybe Turnus shouldn't throw in the towel completely.
Exactly. He makes this point. He says the Volscians are on our side. And when you get the Volscians, you get Camilla.
That's correct.
So let's just hang in there for a little bit.
And maybe we can do it. But he says, if I have to meet Aeneas one-on-one,
bring it on.
Yep.
He says, if that's what it comes down to, he's willing to do that too. And as we'll see, that's what it comes down to.
Yes, he gets his wish, doesn't he?
He does.
In book 12. Well, Jeff, I think we got to get out of here.
We do. I think that's a pretty good cliffhanger.
It is a good
Camilla
place to
is
end.
on the horizon.
That's correct. Coming on her horse, running across the fields of grass. She's so fast.
Yes.
And across the water itself. But that's for next time.
So we got to get out of here. Dave, say a bit about the Moss method in LPSI, would you?
That's right. So if you want to learn Greek with me and you want to go from neophyte to erudite, you can sign up for my course, the Moss Method for Greek. It's divided into 4 modules, takes you from little or no knowledge of Greek, or sometimes it's good for seminary students and those who have left seminary. I have quite a few seminarians and pastors who've taken their Greek, but they want to keep it sharp for their work. This is a great way to refresh and expand your skills. So go to mossmethod.com, check out the free resources I have, and then consider signing up for the course. You can join us for weekly office hours.
Fantastic. That's every Friday, I believe?
Every Friday, that's right. We get together, we talk about Greek. We've been reading some of these very heroic stories from various readers and sometimes from original authors. It's a good time.
Fantastic. And how about LPSI?
Yes. So I have a matching Latin program that uses Hans Orberg's famous book, Lingua Latina per se illustrata, to teach you how to read, write, and speak Latin. And this course is also video-based. You get to witness me teaching 3 other, sometimes 4 other lively and engaged students. There's 33 instructional videos in that program, plus weekly office hours, lots of assignments. And as I've said before, there may be a better program. I can't say. It would be immodest to claim mine is best, but I'm pretty confident there isn't a better value in terms of what you get for your money. So I give a lot of material at a very reasonable price.
And they can find this at latinperdiem.com?
That's correct, /LLPSI.
Excellent.
Please check that out. Whom do we need to thank, Jeff?
As always, the wonderful Mishka, our intrepid engineer. Thanks to Scott Van Zandt and Ken Tamplin for the great music and that blistering guitar that you hear throughout the episode. So,
yeah. Check out their programs if you want to learn to play guitar or sing better than anyone else.
That's true.
They have programs available. Jeff, what are we doing next week?
Let's finish up book 11.
Finish up book 11?
Yep.
And then we're going on to Tarzan and Tradition before book 12. That's going to be exciting.
Fantastic, yes.
Yeah, if you'd like to pick up a t-shirt, you'd like to leave us a nice review at Spotify or Apple iTunes, we would be so appreciative.
Yes.
Go to Aeneid.com, our Lurch with Merch section, and pick out for yourself a nice themed t-shirt with the black and the red, Hercules holding up the world or fighting the Nemean lion. Nice little Latin tag, Quae nocent, docent.
Yes, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
That's correct. Or you can send us an email, a message. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
You can write to jeff@adnauseam.com. Don't forget the V.
Yes, or you can write to Dave@adnauseam.com. Again, don't forget that V.
I think that just about wraps everything up except for the
gustatory parting shot.
That's correct, and it's yours this week, Dr. Winkle.
It is. And this comes from the incomparable Bill Murray.
Yes.
Who said, every pizza is a personal pizza if you try hard and believe in yourself.
What does that mean?
I don't know, but I love it.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.